Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Gerard Dawson, and you're listening to the EdTech Startup Show. Today's guest is Ruben Harris, the CEO of Career Karma. Ruben, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, man. It's an honor. I respect teachers a lot. My sister's a teacher, you're a teacher, so thank you for having me on the show.
Sure. Yeah, there's, like I said to you before, there's so much out there about what you're working on that I have a lot of good stuff to ask you, I think. So, first though, I think this conversation is going to be fascinating for a lot of the folks in the K-12 education environment, because much of what you focus on is maybe a step or two ahead of the K-12 public school system or school system period, but it it has huge implications and maybe a lot of suggestions even that we can take. So what are you working on, and what does your company do?
Yeah. So Career Karma is an app that helps people become software engineers by matching them to job training programs called coding boot camps and giving them support for the rest of their careers. The way that we give them support is through a group of usually 5 to 20 people called squads of peers, coaches, and mentors that are other people like them or people that have done what they've done before that are either going to check in with them from time to time and some people checking in with them every day. And so essentially, it's a social network that helps people do what they love. That's what we do.
Mhm.
On the flip side, some of the things that you've seen online is before we launched Career Karma, we launched a podcast called Breaking into Startups in 2016 that's reached millions of people. And essentially, we created it so people can hear insights about how to take control of their life from other people like them um, from a career perspective, not just building a company perspective.
Yeah, so I really like. There's a couple things on there I want to touch on, but um, I like, of course, as a classroom teacher, I like the social aspect built in. There's a
Hmm.
lot in online education right now that is just about giving people content and saying you do this on your own,
Hmm.
which it has a low rate of success and completion. But
Yeah,
you build in the social aspect with squad. So can you talk a little bit more about that, and
yeah.
why you did that and how it works?
Yeah, I mean, speaking about that low rate of completion, if there's 100 million learners that are taking online courses over the last 7 years. That low rate is about 5 to 15%. And the main reason why is because of lack of discipline and accountability and guidance. Because most people don't do that on their own. They grew up in different environments. When I was in high school, and or when I first started college, they had this thing called the Myers-Briggs personality test. I'm an ENTJ, by the way, and I'm not
Mhm.
going to go into details about that. But if you look online, people call it a 16 personality quiz, which is. Can you hear that in the background? Okay, sorry about that. So they had a 16 personality quiz that you all could take right now for free. And so initially when we created squads, it was just based off of like which boot camp you wanted to do or where you're located. But then we were like, can we create a quiz that helps people come together in a better way in a squad? And so we launched something that you could check out at careerkarma.com/quiz, which is essentially a risk taker. It's essentially a 16 personalities quiz that breaks people down into risk taker, risk averse, busy, lots of free time, lone wolf, collaborative, and one other thing, two other things that are in there that you all can look at. But essentially, it's a really, really powerful thing where we're going to start not just grouping people based off of um, where they're located and what boot camp that they want to do, but how do they work well together. So that's pretty much what we're doing. I think it'd be really good for people to check out. And yeah, so that's a
Mhm.
little bit about squads.
Cool. Yeah, and it not only makes sense to just group the people, but then to use what we have available, which is simple interactive interfaces on a mobile device to make it a little bit more successful, or a lot more successful, is a smart way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
So for anybody who, checks out that quiz or looks into you or your company, you're going to find a lot for everyone listening, which is awesome. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so how I kind of wanted to organize the interview was to point to a couple places where you share content, valuable stuff online, and tie that into one of my questions. So one of the first things, just for, one thing I admire about you and the way you're running your business is that you share yourself. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I can get to know you as a person by learning about you and your company. So you do that on your Instagram for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, this week, you had a cool post, something about the salon is starting soon.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and then I kept watching, and you play the cello. So I'm curious about that. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my brother, David, he did a coding boot camp. So he's a software engineer at Omada Health. Right now, he has a podcast episode on our podcast, breakingstartups.com. Um, but he's also the more talented musician out of all of us. So like, I play the cello, but he plays cello, guitar, piano. He sings, he composes, and that performance that you're talking about, the monthly salon, is a show that we do every month with Andy Warhol's former executive director. His name's Boris Goldman, and he's been running these monthly concerts for over 2 decades in San Francisco. And so that was where that came from. So yeah, that's what that was from, and it was pretty cool because there's a whole group of people that like aren't in the tech world, but also in the tech world as well. And it's a great way for me to keep my music up. I've been playing the cello since I was 4 years old, and so has my brother. And this is the first time he and I have performed in public in San Francisco, even though he's been here for the last 2 years. And we're going to do a lot more performances together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just it fits in with the idea behind your company of continuous learning, I think. So
Hmm. Hmm.
that's a cool approach. Um, so something else like you shared is you're like right now you're willing to kind of tell your story and your company's story on interviews, and you have a good YouTube channel.
Hmm.
So you recently had an interview with you and I believe it was the CEO of Zappos and
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
lady from Autodesk. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
Forgive me for leaving out their names, but
Uh,
um, one of the quotes that stood out to me there was you said, talking about the people that you're serving with Career Karma, you said, this is a great group of people, but the people that we're talking about are not actually in the room. And so, which I thought was a great point. um, it happens a lot in K-12 education too, when there's lots of decisions being made without student input or without teacher input. Um, so you talked about the need to create awareness for the service that you're providing um, through podcasts, through content. Can you talk a little bit about your approach, like how you went from to to bring awareness to people who could benefit from your service but might not be seeking that out?
yeah. No, I love that that's the quote that stood out to you from that conversation, because I try to do that often whenever I'm speaking in front of a room of like very powerful connected people, and just like explain that like the people that we are addressing aren't in the room, which is interesting because like whenever you talk to people that are creating startups, they usually say talk to your users. But whenever those same people creating the startups want to do something philanthropic, they're usually talking to people that give money to help the people that they want to serve rather than the people that they're trying to serve, right? And so the people that we are trying to serve um, in Career Karma, we want to reach 1 billion people in 10 years, have historically never had access to this type of information. And to your point, the product that we've built with Career Karma is the product that we wish that we had when we were breaking into tech. So just giving them insight into the roles that exist and also the job training programs is helpful, but they also need guidance, not just through squads and coaches and mentors. Sometimes they need guides. So we have a whole big guide on how to pay for a coding boot camp. We have a public service loan forgiveness guide. We have a whole state of the market for the income share agreement guide that literally is the most comprehensive on the internet, so that it's not a mystery for people, and so people are clear about what they're signing up for, and everyone can check it out in the show notes as they listen to this. But essentially, our approach to content is to be radically transparent and let people know what's going on, but not just create media that can be consumed and now you know something more. You also have action items, right? It's not enough for me to enlighten you if you don't know what to do next, right? If I die tomorrow, you should be able to have a blueprint, right, on what to do in order to be greater than me and greater than us, right?
Mhm.
If you think about Archer Team or Not, we were the original squad before Career Karma was created, right? And we all went through ups and downs and held each other down. And as we were going through this process, we would enlighten each other. We would learn from other people that we talked to. We would write things down. And now if you look at the Breaking Into Startups Manifesto, which is on LinkedIn, which came out after our first 2 blog posts, we promised that we were going to build a pipeline and a comprehensive resource center that's going to give people the best insight on anything related to a career period, not just software engineering. Coding bootcamps are just the start, but we will build the world's most powerful staffing firm of all time. So that's how we think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, so as you're talking about your process of learning, basically, with you and your 2 co-founders, and how you started with the media part first, kind of to build up an audience, but then I really relate to what you're talking about in terms of your process of writing things down, sharing with each other, and going forward in that way. But I can also really see the value of turning that into a process and a product for other people, because maybe you can speak to it, but I know for me, like I mentioned, I teach English, but a couple of years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, actually from another Y Combinator company, 1 month, I became fascinated in learning the basics of coding. And I wrote about it, actually talking about how it made me better at teaching kids with learning disabilities or dyslexia how to read, because I had to take something that I was bad at, and I didn't even see myself as somebody who could be a coder. And I had to find, okay, what's step 1? Oh, everything's broken. Now what do I do? So the way that you guide people through the things that might otherwise take them a very long time, I think is really important.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you think about information, right? Like, we are living in a great era where you have the internet and you can just you can Google anything and you can find information. But you will be overloaded if you don't know how to use that information, right? And so most people that aren't aware of these roles and the skills that are required in the job training programs don't know how to use the information, even if they have it, right? So on one hand, yes, a way to use that people in power kept people under their rule was by not giving them access to information, and the printing press was invented, and people started changing their life, right? But now we're in an age where everybody has access to this information, but they still need guidance. That's why you hear all these colleges talking about the importance of guided pathways, because the reason why our student loan amount is so high is because people thought that college was going to get them a job that paid more than the amount of loans that they took out, but that didn't happen. We talked about high school in the beginning of this. Back in the day, people didn't go to college; they just went straight into work after high school, right? And then industrial revolution happened, and we can talk about that later, right? But I think things are actually returning back to what it used to be, where high school apprenticeship. You can go to college if you want. You don't have to. It can make
Mm-hmm.
you more well-rounded, but it's not necessary for a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it might be a finishing school. It might be something that makes you a more refined leader. Blah blah blah. Like it's more like going to art school, right? Which is like you don't have to play the cello, but it can make you a better person, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
Yeah, yeah. No, I really like that line of thinking, and I think a lot of people are going to cling on to the current way, which is always the case. But I see a lot of trends that kind of make it inevitable.
yeah.
Um, Another quote that I like from you, which was in one of your YouTube videos, said, uh, "You're talking to a guy who had a 2.8 GPA from a school most people have never heard of, who figured out how to break into investment banking."
Mhm.
And then you went on.
Uh-huh.
So that was another thing that stood out to me because I know from teaching that GPA and success in school fits a certain type of kid,
Mhm.
and there's many other types of kids, humans, people
Mhm.
who can be successful, um, and then the GPA and success in traditional school is not a preview of that. So
Mhm.
I'm curious, uh, you know, what did you mean when you told that story? How did you make that happen for yourself?
I mean, like going back to us creating a product that we wish that we had when we were breaking into tech that ultimately helps people make their most important career decisions for the rest of their life, not just which coding boot camp is best for them. Um, you talked about our focus on being accessible. The reason why I'm super accessible and our whole team is all over the media is because we want people to know that it's possible, right? And when someone comes to me and they're like, "Oh, well, it's not possible because I'm black." Well, I'm black, right? Or it's not possible because like I didn't have good grades. Well, I didn't have good grades. Or it's not possible because of whatever, right? I'm not going to fit every single criteria for a hard, a tough background, right? But people in the career combo community will. We have moms, we have dads, we have people that are older. We have a squad called Code Gray. We got a Vets Who Code squad. We got people that were formerly incarcerated, right? We got every single background you can imagine: high school dropouts, college dropouts, self-taught, everything is inside of the app. And so, the reason why I tell stories like that is because um, it's relatable, right? And it's possible. And everybody in Career Karma represents hope. And we're not teaching people to work for companies. We teach them to work for each other. Um, to your question about how I was able to overcome those things, before I even met Arthur and Timur, you know, I found content. I found guides like what we have in the Career Karma Resource Center. I found a blog called Mergers and Acquisitions. I found a website called Breaking into Wall Street. I found courses that were like, hey, this industry only hires like 10,000 people a year, but they all make 100 to 100 plus $50,000 in their first year. And I was like, that's crazy. And they were like, this is what's required in order to get into that. And so I just started studying all the guides. And they were like, guess what? We have a beta program and a course that we're going to teach you if you sign up for it. And I paid for it and I took it and I got in. And when I got in and I trusted the process and I skipped a bunch of steps. Actually, before doing it, if normally someone wouldn't do what I did, because when I read the blog, it said I had to be a certain type of person. I had to be a certain school, certain GPA. I had to all these different types of things. But I realized that I guess for my father, that like he just helped me believe that anything's possible, and I also am spiritual too. So I believe that like I can do all things right through Christ who strengthens me. So it's like if I set a goal, I can do what I want to do, right? And so I told people I'm going to do this regardless of all these other things, and then followed the process and made it happen. And we're doing the same exact thing through Career Karma, except we have a product and the entire community of over 40,000 people since January that's going to continue to grow. Every time I do a podcast, there's always more people and more people and more people, which is awesome. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. A couple great things in there. I I I I like how um, it's clearly I'm a white guy from the New Jersey suburbs, so I can't speak to what you just said. But when you're able to respond to people's objections more or less and say I'm doing it, um, and the way you said it makes it seem like not as you're pushing aside any of their reasons that they give, but like you said, it's giving hope instead. I really like that way of
Yeah,
you being a leader. Um,
yeah.
so another interview, and I read the article when you're on the free code camp,
Mhm.
which is another great free educational resource for people who want
Mhm.
to learn to code.
Mhm.
You just talk generally about not getting into Y Combinator, or the article
Mhm.
mentions not getting into Y Combinator, and then you
Mhm.
did.
Mhm.
And for folks who don't know, Y Combinator is if you have a startup, you get accepted. They'll give you, you can explain better, but they'll give you some money and a lot of help to try to grow. And companies like Airbnb, Dropbox have started there. Um, so I'm curious, that could be a big disappointment. So, but you pushed through it. So could you tell me about finding out that you didn't get in, and what it was like then to regroup and try again?
Yeah, I mean, for us, CareerCom is not just a company, man. Like we know that what we're building is it doesn't ju- it does it shouldn't just exist in the world. It needs to exist in the world. Like it's like this is gonna happen regardless, right? So, you know, when we went through that situation, what we talk to people about CareerCom as they're going through this process is to remember their why, right? If you're not focused on why you're doing something, whenever you run into a roadblock, it's going to be very hard to power through it. Um, you know, it's harder to get into Y Combinator than Stanford, right? For example, and when we got the interview, it felt great. We got an email, it was awesome, and so when we got the email after the first interview, I thought I thought we crushed the interview. So I thought we were going to be moving to the next steps. But when you get an email after the first interview, then most people know that that's a rejection. So my mindset was we're in there, and I was like overly confident. And my brother's watching me, and I'm like, let's show me the email, right? But when we got the email, I was devastated. Like it hurt. My brother was looking at me. He was currently in a boot camp, so he hadn't become a software engineer yet. This was like um, earlier. Was it earlier this year? No, my brother's been working for a little while. It was recent. It was recent. So it was just like he was still in his boot camp. He wasn't a software engineer, but he was watching us, seeing what we were gonna do. And so like when it happened, I essentially like didn't let any of the tears show, and then did the work, called a meeting, we made a plan, um, let the tears out after, and then executed, started making money, and did it again. It still hurts, man, even thinking about it, even after being in it. And then we executed, applied again in December and got in. I've never gotten anything the first time. That's something that I think is also important to be real about. I'm not a genius. Like I'm not. I'm just like everybody else, man. Like you know, the best people out here aren't just smart. They just don't quit. Like I said, the thing that drives me through this is I know without a shadow of a doubt I'm doing what I was meant to do. Like I'm aligned on mission and purpose. So I can't stop.
I appreciate you sharing that. And when you say something's going to exist, it's just a matter of who's going to do it. Plus,
Yeah.
you say it's your mission and purpose. That's a good combination.
Yes. It's not just me, man. It's like it's not just product market fit. It's founder market fit. Like me and my co-founders, this we are the team to do this.
Mhm.
Like there's nobody in the world that was meant to do this other than us. Like we are stepping into this is our time. And
Mhm.
people watch this video and they'll see me say it. And I know that. I feel it. The energy shows it.
Yeah, I know. I can see it on your face and hear it. I believe you. And so this the opportunity and um, passion for making things more accessible that will really have an impact on people's whole future. I do think that while there's plenty of awesome things happening in earlier education in K-12, when people, helping people in low income areas get early childhood education, improved access to all sorts of programs. I think helping people make sure they continue on a track after they graduate to get to be able to support themselves basically and do something they like. It has not trickled permeated all the way into high school kids making decisions. So
Hmm.
um what would you say, how would you like to bring your mindset and career karma's philosophy, if you think it's applicable, how would you like to bring it to kids who are 16, 17, 18 years old, to their parents, to their teachers, counselors, to that group?
Yeah, I think that's a very deep question. It's a question that I talk about a lot with my buddy Ian Brock, who's he runs Dream Hustle Code with his parents. He's trying to teach coding to kids, and obviously that's not the current career karma demographic, but the parents of the kids are helping, like are exposing them to these things, and a lot of times they're in jobs that they don't want, but they're doing what they got to do to survive, and a lot of times the kids are looking up to the parents to see what they're doing that leads them, or what they're not doing that leads them into whatever that they end up going into. And so not everyone is blessed to have parents, um, but they are surrounded by different individuals, whether that's friends, whether that's teachers, whether that is pastors, whether that is therapists, whoever, right? Somebody that influences you in some kind of way, right? Um, I think um, I think most barriers in life are actually psychological, not technical, and so um, getting younger people to consume content that is actionable, that that encourages them to explore fields and opportunities, that doesn't just help them get money making skills, but understand how to use their inherent gifts in this world that aligns with their purpose. And I know that was a mouthful because I'm spitballing, but like that's that's what you want to do, because like most people aren't doing what they love. And most people, if you ask them, if you didn't have any money costs, like if you had all the money in the world and didn't have any bills to pay, what would you do? And a lot of people don't have an answer for that, right? So we can start getting people thinking about that. Most people, their goal is money, but money is not an end; it's a means. So I would say if you flip, financial literacy is definitely important early on, like if you're talking about high school, right? But also encouraging people to flip the script and be like, all right, if you had all this money, what would you do with it? Right? For example, an exercise we asked with our content team is like, if you had a budget of $500,000 a month, how would you use it? Right? A lot of times it's hard to actually spend that much money. Like a lot, they don't know how to spend it sometimes, right? It's something that me and my co-founders ask ourselves, like, yeah, we raised $2 million for our Combinator, but we're like, if we had $100 million right now and we had to spend it in order to create a bigger return, how would we spend it? We had to spend it in 1 year, what we do. We had to spend it in 3 months, what we do, right? So like, don't think about money as finite. Like we live in a world of abundance, and so like I think, and I know I'm still talking about this same question, but like I think if you get people to think about life as like a mindset and a system in a game that can be won, but the point of the game is not winning, but to keep playing and to keep like reinventing yourself, you'll recognize that if you are a good player, you'll be able to win no matter what cards are dealt to you. So there's a good book called Finite and Infinite Games that you probably have read, but it kind of breaks down a lot of that type of stuff.
I heard of it. I haven't read it though, so I'll add it to my list. Finite and Infinite Games. You know who wrote that off the top of your head?
I don't know who wrote it, but the founders of Stripe told us about it when we were in Y Combinator.
Okay, cool, good recommendation. So, yeah, I like that's a great thing that you said at the end there. I think profound, and if you take it in, you know, I think not everyone would agree, to be honest. So it's curious because you said if you play the game the right way, you'll win no matter the hands that you're dealt. Yeah, that seems like right now I see a lot of discussion that would kind of go against that. But I like.
I mean, there's definitely things that we can't control. Like for example, if I'm like locked up and I really can't make any decisions, but like at the same time, like if you listen to our podcast, there's a guy named Divine who was locked up for 10 years and he started reading and he discovered a man named Ben Horowitz. And now that he's released, he and Ben Horowitz are like best friends, and now he's friends with a billionaire. So you can be like, well, I got no options because I'm locked up, but he did what he had to do. Same thing with Shaka Senghor, another person, same similar situation. And it's not always just black people, right? Like the majority of people in America that are poor are actually white, right? There's like socioeconomic diversity is something we got to study. You know, we got to listen to what Reverend Dr. Barber is talking about with the Poor People's Campaign, or even what Dr. Martin Luther King said. Dr. Martin Luther King was talking about automation for a long time. Read his interview in Playboy magazine about 1965. Yes, Dr. Martin Luther King did an interview in Playboy magazine about automation. Check it out. And the future of work.
Okay, another thing on the reading list there. Yeah, so a couple times here you've mentioned. I know we're getting towards the end of our time, so just a couple quick questions to wrap up. You mentioned doing what you love a couple times, and then I know career karma is based around coding. So doing what you love is not coding for everybody. So what's in the how do you apply your model, or as you work to help 1 billion people, what about the people who don't want to learn to code?
Well, this might be a news flash for a lot of people that might have heard me on a podcast talking about coders, but I'm not a software engineer, right? My co-founders are software engineers and they did coding bootcamps, right? My background in startups is in sales, right? And an investment banker that I did before is essentially a B2B salesman with deep industry knowledge and a strong quantitative background, right? For us, we believe that these non-technical roles are going to be bigger in the future of work, just like they are today. And once we perfect the process to get someone into a software engineering job through a coding bootcamp, we will expand to other skill sets. And that's why Career Karma is not called Code Karma, it's called Career Karma. Yeah, we're starting with boot camps because they are the first educational institution to use income share agreements at scale and place people into high paying jobs in a short amount of time with a deep alumni base of people that have not just experience but are in hiring manager positions to make decisions to hire people from alternative backgrounds, because some companies still have the mindset that you have to go to college, whether that person has talent or not, and they will not look at people that don't have college degrees. That mindset is changing because most tech companies have actually dropped the requirement to have a college degree. And even if you hired all the talent that graduated from college, you wouldn't fill the open jobs. So companies are forced to talk to the other people. But rather than having that argument, we just focus on people that are already about this life. And then when the rest of the world catches up, we'll already be there ready with people.
Mm-hmm. So you can kind of perfect your process and model, and then replicate it into different sectors, different industries.
Yeah, when people read the income share agreement guide, so for the people that don't know what an income share agreement is, it's essentially a promise that enables anybody to do what they love without taking any risk. If they don't get a job, they don't pay anything. But if they do get a job, then the tuition comes out of their new salary because the teacher helped them put food on their table, so you can put food on theirs, right? So it's a win-win. Um, and so essentially, um, income share agreements aren't just at coding boot camps, they're spreading to other skill sets and even to other colleges. And so when I did my demo day presentation during Y Combinator, that's one of the key points that I pointed out, is that income share agreements are spreading. I think there's 16 million people that enroll in trade schools every year right now. And like I said, like if you apply, well, I'm not going to do the math around it, but there's a multi-billion dollar market with trade schools alone. But it's happening at college, and even employers are starting to fund this education as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of your posts and a lot of this discussion for folks on who want to learn more, also the future of work, the hashtag future of work, another good thing for people to look into, for just to kind of pull together a lot of the points you're making here.
Yeah.
So Ruben, I really enjoyed getting to hear your perspective and kind of applying it to the part of education that I spend my days in, and getting to join it with yours has been really big education for me. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. Where, for folks who are interested and they want to learn more about Career Karma, follow what you have to say, whatever suggestion you want to make to listeners, what would you like to make?
Yeah, no, I thank you for that. I enjoyed being on the show as well. For the people that want to learn more about Career Karma, just download the Career Karma app. Um, Go to our website, careerkarma.com. Check out the quiz. Check out our guides. Check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/careerkarma. If you want to hear stories, just go to breakinginthestartups.com. We have our own audio and video player built into the app, so you can just look at it in the Spotlight tab or listen to them in the Spotlight tab anyway. If you don't want to go to all those places, just download the app because all exists there. If you want to tweet us, it's career_karma. And if you want to email me, it's just Ruben, RUBEN, @careerkarma.com. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, until next time, my name is Gerard Dawson. This is the EdTech Startup Show. And once again, Ruben, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Gerard. Peace.